All right, so section 2.7 is called function operations. So we've already talked about functions, right? So our function notation, just to remind you, can look a lot of different ways, but the most common ones are f of x or g of x or h of x. Like those are the most common names, f, g, and h. Now they can use anything, r, s, a, b, it doesn't matter, mn. And then the variable inside the x, it can be any variable too. It can be f of t, g of t, h of t, it doesn't matter. It's all based on the equation, okay? But remember, that's just the way that they name the functions. So what they're going to want you to do is they're going to want you to add functions. So like, for example, if I were to say that f of x was x plus 2 and g of x was 3x minus 5, and I told you to add these. If I said, I'm going to kind of leave a little bit of space here on purpose, okay? Because I'm going to write something on the left side right now of this, okay? But if I told you, find f plus g of x, if I wanted you to write that out, okay, f of x plus g of x. What you would do, and again, I'm leaving that space on the left side on purpose, okay, so you can see what they're going to try to do in a bit. F of x plus g of x, what I would do is write f of x, which is x plus 2, and then add g of x, which is 3x minus 5. Okay, so there's f of x plus g of x. Now go ahead and add, if you want to get rid of the parentheses, it would be x plus 2 plus 3x minus 5. Notice the positive in front of the parenthesis doesn't change anything. Okay, now just combine like terms and we get 4x minus 3. And I'm done. Like, this is my answer. This is kind of what you're going to be doing on your homework today. Just kind of adding these things together. Okay? The only difference is the way they write it is going to be like this. F plus g of x. So whenever you see a parenthesis f plus g, and then on the outside they put the x there, that means that they're just adding the two functions together. Okay? So, and they're going to do that for subtraction. They're going to do that for multiplication. They can even do it for division, but we're not going to be working on that. So let me just kind of show you this little definitions that they're going to want us to do. So function operations. Then we'll work on some examples and I'll give you guys your homework. So function operations. So if they want you to add, okay, you're going to see this. F plus g of x. Okay, so when they want you to add, you're going to see f plus g of x, which means f of x plus g of x. Okay, so they're just saying get your two functions, add them together. And again, it doesn't have to be an f and a g or letter x. It can be m plus n of t, which would be m of t plus n of t, right? It doesn't matter. It's based on the names they do. Now, if they want you to subtract, they'll use f minus g of x. So it would be f of x minus g of x. Okay? And then to multiply, you'll see f, either they're going to put a little dot next to it like this, or sometimes they don't put a dot. They just write fg of x. Okay? And that would be f of x times g of x. Okay? You can also do division, but like I said, I don't think that's on your homework. I'm just double checking for that. Yeah, I don't see it. So we're not going to worry about that operation. But I mean, f divided by g of x can also be a thing. I'll give you the definition, but we're not going to be doing anything like that. So f divided by g of x is f of x over g of x. All right? So we're worried about the top three. The adding, the subtracting, and the multiplying. Okay? But like I said, it's not meant to be like, oh my gosh, this is so difficult. You guys have added functions before, so it's not like this is brand new. It's just a new way for them to write it. So, all right? So let me give you some examples here. And there's two ways that we're going to do examples. We're going to do examples generally, meaning they're not going to have any numbers to plug in, and then we're going to do some that are going to be more like applied. Some numbers are going to give you for you to actually plug in. So we're going to simplify here. Okay, and we'll do some examples from your homework. That way, at least you got stuff that looks familiar. So part A, let's do g of a equal to 4a minus 1. H of a is 4a plus 4. And what they want you to do is to find g of a plus h of a. Now notice they didn't write it g plus h of a. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. Okay, so in this case they didn't. They're being a little bit more specific. They're saying find g plus h of a. That's what they want us to do. Like, what is that equal to? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write down both functions with the plus in the middle. So I'm going to write 4a minus 1 plus 4a plus 4. Let me not change the color there. I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay. So rewrite your problem here. So this is equal to 4a minus 1 plus 4a plus 4. Combine your like terms. So 4a plus 4a, that's like terms. That's going to be 8a. And negative 1 plus 4 is 3. And you're done. Like I said, these problems aren't meant to be like overwhelmingly difficult. They're just addition and subtraction, maybe multiplication. Okay? So it's not going to be like crazy difficult. Let me give you one that looks a little bit tougher to do. But again, you're just plugging it in and simplifying. Okay? So part B, let's do, they're going to give us g of x, which is 2x, f of x, which is x squared minus 5. And they want us to find g minus f of x. That's what they want us to do, g minus f of x. So first let me rewrite it, okay? Let me rewrite it, not g minus f of x. Let me write it g of x minus f of x. That way I know what I'm doing. I'm getting the g function and subtracting the f function. All right, so let me write down the g function. That's 2x minus. And now let me write down the f function. That's x squared minus 5. Now you notice how this one has a minus in the middle? You're going to have to distribute that. That's really the only like tough part in this section, honestly, is remembering that if there's a minus in between your parentheses, you got to distribute. Because or else things are going to come out wrong. So make sure you distribute properly. Okay? So 2x minus x squared plus 5. Now, honestly, you're done. That's it. Because there are no like terms. There's an x, x squared, and a 5. None of those are like. But some people like to put them in order. I know the book a lot of times wants to put them in order. So if you rewrite it with the highest power first, usually that's the answer you would see like on a state test or in a book answer key or something like that. But notice I didn't really add anything together. I just kind of rearranged it. And that's all. So that would be part B. So we've done an addition, we've done a subtraction, let's do a multiplication. Okay? We're going to do a multiplication problem. Are we okay so far with any questions on these? So you're just basically adding or subtracting, or maybe right now we're about to multiply. So part C, let's do I'm trying to see which one we should try, but I think we should try this one because it has different variables. So just so you can see it. 4n plus 2 for g of n and n minus 5 for h of n. And they're going to want us to find g times h of n. So we're finding g times h of n. So remember, rewrite it first. Rewrite it as g of n times h of n. Now write down your g of n, which would be 4n plus 2. And you're going to multiply it times h of n, which would be n minus 5. And at this point, hopefully you remember, when you have a binomial times a binomial, you're supposed to use distribution, or some people like to call it FOIL, but you're going to be distributing. Okay? So I'll kind of draw the picture here. You're going to do 4n times n and 4n times negative 5. Okay? So that's the first thing you're going to be doing. And then after that, you're going to work on 2 times n and 2 times negative 5. Okay? So that's what we're going to have to do. So let's go with the green ones first. 4n times n is 4n squared. Now the other one, 4n times negative 5, is negative 20n. Now go with the blue lines. Positive 2 times n is a positive 2n. And then positive 2 times negative 5 is a negative 10. And, sorry about that. Just had to restart here. We did 2 times n, that's 2n, and 2 times negative 5, negative 10. Okay? Now combine your like terms. Your only like terms are right in the middle. Negative 20n plus 2n. That's going to be a negative 18n. So that's 4n squared minus 18n minus 10. And there's your multiplication. Now maybe there's a problem that has, instead of like an n minus 5, it might be an n squared plus 2 or something. Like the powers might change, but it doesn't really change what you're doing. Just multiply stuff out, okay? That's all you're going to do for that type of problem. So hopefully this doesn't look that difficult for you guys. The next part that I'm going to show you looks harder, but it's actually easier, okay? Because it all of a sudden they put numbers in and you're like, oh man, now I got to plug in numbers at the end. Actually, it's easier if you plug them in first. And then you just do whatever they want you to do. So I'm going to show you that right now. But does anybody have any questions on the first 3 examples? So again, this was multiplication. Okay, just multiply things together. This was our subtraction. Right, g minus f of x is subtraction. And for part A, they didn't give us the special way to write it. But if they did, it would have said g plus h of a, right? G plus h of a would have become g of a plus h of a. But like I said, sometimes they're going to give it to you guys in the special notation. Sometimes they're not. They're just going to say add them, okay? So, all right. So last example here, we're probably going to do about 2 or 3 maybe, again, just to kind of get some out of the way, because it looks like you guys have 12 problems. So example number 2, we're going to evaluate. So we're just going to try to simplify here. And actually, they're only giving you 4 of these. Okay, so I'm only going to do 2 because I don't want to do 3 out of the 4. So I'll try to pick 2 that look a little similar or different, I mean. So here we go. If they give you g of x equal to 4x plus 3 and f of x, which would be equal to x cubed minus 5, they're going to want us to find g of 0 plus f of 0. Now, there are some people that will say, okay, if they want me to do g of 0 plus f of 0, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do g of x plus f of x first, and then I'll plug in the 0. Sometimes that's harder to do. So what I always tell people is, look, work out g of 0, work out f of 0, and then add them together. So this is my recommendation. What I would tell you, find what g of 0 is. So g of 0 means plug in a 0 into my equation. What do I get for g of 0? What's my answer? 4 times 0 plus 3. What is that? Just 3. All right, what's f of 0? Let's see, that's going to be 0 to the third minus 5. What's my answer there? Minus 5. Thank you. So it's minus 5. So if I add these two things together, g of 0 is 3, plus f of 0 is negative 5. Well, what's 3 minus 5? That's negative what? Negative 2. And I'm done. That's easier to do than combining your terms first. I actually used to combine my terms first, and then one day I'm like, why am I doing that? If I figure out the answers, then all I got to do is add, subtract, or multiply or divide numbers. Why am I adding, subtracting, multiply, or dividing all these big old polynomials? Like let's not worry about that. Let's figure stuff out first, and then plug in our numbers and do that. It's going to be a lot easier. So that's one of them. Let me give you the last one, part B. This will be a multiplication one. We'll make it the toughest one, I guess. So g of x, they both look kind of tough, but this one has negative numbers to plug in, so I guess that would make it a little bit tougher. So it'd be 3x plus 1, and they want me to find, I'm going to write it the other way, g times f of negative 1. Now, in your homework, it doesn't look like that. In your homework, they wrote g of negative 1 times f of negative 1. But I want you guys to see it. So g times f of negative 1, which means g of negative 1 times f of negative 1. So again, don't multiply those two functions together if you don't have to. Figure out their values. So what is g of negative 1? So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. 2 times negative 1 squared minus 2 times negative 1. If you put that into your calculator, the first one, negative 1 squared is 1, and 1 times 2 is 2. And then negative 2 times negative 1 is a positive 2. So your answer for g of negative 1 is 4. And again, use a calculator if you have to. I mean, these numbers aren't like so extreme that you have to use a calculator. If you want to, go ahead. And then f of negative 1, well, that's 3 times negative 1 plus 1. That's negative 3 plus 1, which is negative 2. So what I'm basically going to do is get my answers. G of negative 1 is 4 times f of negative 1 is negative 2. And 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. okay? And those are your solutions for those two problems. Like I said, I recommend that you do it the way I'm showing you, because if not, you're going to have to multiply 2x squared minus 2x times 3x plus 1, do foiling and all that, and then plug in your number. Not that that's wrong, but I just think that's more stressful to do because there's more variables and things flying around. So it might be easier just to figure out the actual answer to each individual piece and then just multiply at the end or add or subtract at the end. Okay? So this is what your homework is. You got 12 problems. I just did 5 for you guys. So you have 7 more to go.